So let's do a little housekeeping before we bless. So Bruchim Habaim, welcome. Nice to have you. Mazal Tov on finishing Rabbi Abram's book, Chazak Chazak Benit Chazek. Hope you felt that you had a meaningful experience and that our introduction to Talmud was a worthy endeavor and a meaningful journey. Now we're going to use our Talmudic skills to dive into the Talmud specifically and only, and we're going to try and draw meaning from it based on our own analysis and any analyses that we can draw in. And we're going to base this shift in our study on Daf Yomi. And so in this document, for example, you have what we would study today, 106, and we're going to look at 106A today and 106B next time. And then next week, I'll give you the next assignment. This way you have 1 week in between classes to study and to prepare. And while I don't expect you to work too hard in preparation, having a look-see at things and being comfortable with what's there will help propel our conversation, make it richer. Okay? The other thing I want to bring up is my fervent desire to shorten our class to an hour. Every other teaching that we're doing throughout the week is an hour. And I'm finding the need to create a longer transition between the end of this class and the beginning of Shabbat services. And because we're online, I have to get on by 10:30. And we have a lot of prep to do in that half hour. And so I'd like to, with your indulgence, focus our course on an hour. Okay, so we'll make our way through this first daf of Talmud, 106a, and let's bless. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign over time and space, who makes us holy with commandments, commands us to engage in the study of Torah.
Rabbi?
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure everybody knows, because I learned this the hard way, because when I started Daf Yomi, we were doing brachot, and I just assumed that the pages just kept getting bigger. They do not. When you start a new book, we went from brachot to Shabbat. Shabbat starts over at 2, because they don't start at 1. They start at 2 and starts over again. So just because you get to page 88 or 110 or 300 doesn't mean you're not going to start over. So just for those who are as anal as I am, it was an interesting thing to find out.
Not to worry, not to worry. By the way, if you want to do something interesting today, even during services, I dare say, you see this sign behind me? This Fight for the Future sign? This is the Poor People's Campaign, one of their posters. They're having their march today online. And if you go to the Poor People's Campaign website, you will see how to get involved in the online march. And it's interesting to me as we exit our Pride Shabbat, our Juneteenth observance, which is a new observance for us as a community, which we did last night. The very following day is a day that we remember the very beginning of the Poor People's Campaign, which takes many of the issues that we're dealing with as it relates to, say, well, discrimination in general, but homophobia and racism, and brings into the picture economic repression, right? And it would seem that the economics of life, and particularly poverty, are the one thing that extends into all areas of marginalization, no matter what they are. People who are LGBTQ plus, people who are of color, people who are poor, extends into all these areas of marginalization. Let me get Ruben in and put up the text again.
Rabbi,
Yes.
can you share your screen? Because I have to keep flipping from this to that.
No
to
problem.
the PDF. I think it would be.
No problem. All right, so let's do that. Anyway, so the Poor People's Campaign, Reverend Barber, fascinating, amazing person and leader. He and his organization are having their march on Washington online. And I totally recommend participating in it if you can. It's actually during services because it's on the East Coast, or it's beginning on the East Coast. Do we see that?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody that came in just the last couple of minutes, you can find this text in your inbox. We're going to start doing Daf Yomi, and your assignment for next week is 106B. Make sure you take a look at it in preparation for our next class, and then next week I'll put in the next piece of Talmud that we're going to work on.
It is not in my inbox.
Okay, let me try again.
Ella Fleischman?
Hang on.
Lori, it's in the chat box.
Yeah, I have to keep doing it over and over as you come in. So one sec, please. Hang on one sec, guys. I need to go offline for 2 seconds. Maybe not during study and services. Sorry, excuse me. Let me mute.
You're fine.
Thank you for your patience. All right, so let's work fast. We are only going till 10 today. So, and we'll be doing it for an hour each time. So we'll do our best to start at 9. So I hope you'll do your best to be here at 9, okay? All righty. And if you have to come late, that's fine, not to worry. I just, we want to try and make the best of our hour. All right, so couple of facts here. Oh boy. Deborah, can you send the material to Deborah Miller? Do you have her email? Address? Yes. Do you have her email?
Yes.
Can you forward that document to her?
Sure.
That'd be awesome. And then I will look for her in terms of getting in. All right. So, couple things. So, just looking up our sages here, I'm just going to kind of dive in. Firstly, Rabbi Yochanan lived in 180 to 279 CE, was a leading rabbi early in the history of Talmud. He is a second generation Amora. And we'll see his opinions quoted thousands of times throughout both the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. And the compilation of the Yerushalmi is often ascribed to Yochanan. Now, his counterpart here is Chaya bar Abba, and he is known to be a third generation Amora in the land of Israel of priestly descent. So he's a Kohen, and he flourished at the end of the 3rd century. So they're in conversation here.
Down.
So hopefully we'll hear from Deborah Miller. Let me text her. Check your inbox. All right. Jay, please.
Rabbi Hiya bar Abba raised an objection to Rabbi Yochanan. It is stated, "And the nations worshiped the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders, who lived many days after Joshua," indicating that the elders lived long lives, even though they did not eulogize Joshua properly. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, "Babylonian, you should be more precise in your reading. They indeed lived many days. However, they did not live many years. In fact, they did not live to the end of that year." Again he asked, "But then, with regard to the verse, so that your days and the days of your children will multiply on the land which the Lord your God swore to give to your fathers, as the days of the heavens over the earth, would you also say that here the reward is to live many days but not years?" He answered him, "A blessing is different and should be interpreted in its most expansive sense."
Okay. All right. So, firstly, what do we have going on here? All right. So we're building on a text in Judges, chapter 2, verse 7, that indicates the length of days accorded to the elders, despite the fact they did not eulogize Joshua properly. So what does Yochanan do? He calls for more precise reading. What's the precise reading? They live many days, but not many years.
Right.
In fact, they did not live to the end of that year. So because they did not eulogize Joshua, they may have lived many days, 300 days, let's say, but they did not live 70 or 80 years beyond that. So Yochanan wants us to be more precise in our understanding of the language.
Is there a sense of punishment here? Were people punished for not eulogizing Joshua properly?
I would say yes.
Yes, because I think if we look ahead, for some reason they don't highlight it, but I think we should look ahead. Linda, please, and Rabbi Chaya bar Abba.
Yes.
Rabbi, wait a minute.
The yellow.
Right here and then right here.
Okay. Rabbi Hiya bar Abba said that Rabbi Yochanan said, if one of the brothers dies, all of the brothers concerned, lest their death be approaching. Similarly, if one member of a group dies, the entire group should be concerned. Some say the concern is greatest if the eldest dies. If he, despite his virtues, could not avoid punishment, the others will certainly not be saved. Some say the concern is greatest if the youngest dies. because the least significant people are punished first. And perhaps this is the start of a punishment for the entire group.
Okay. And then we see here horizontally where it says halakha. Do you see that? If
Yep.
one member of a group dies, the entire group should be concerned, right? According to the Rambam in the Shulchan Aruch. So, what do you think the problem is?
Dying is a punishment. That's my problem with this.
Okay.
Is that true? So the people who live to 110 are way better than those who die at 10. I have a big problem with
Well,
that.
so here we're not talking about Joshua.
No, we're talking about the people.
Here we're talking about the people who fail to properly eulogize him.
Correct. But they take it.
So I guess my question is, Devorah and company, is what is the reward? What is the true reward of properly eulogizing someone?
A long life.
A long life. So what could be behind that? So let's look at the rest of the text more carefully. So, but then with regard to the verse, so that your days and all the days of your children will multiply on the land which the eternal God swore to give your fathers as the days of the heavens over the earth. Would you also say that here the reward is to live many days, but not years? So blessing is different. It should be interpreted in the most expansive sense. Right, so no eulogy, no long life. Blessing, and your days will multiply. Oh, but wait a second. I thought days weren't, maybe many, but it's really the years that we want to multiply in terms of a long-standing life. How many days, could it be? 5 days, 300 days? That may be many days, but it's not a long time, right? It's 1 year, right? 365 days may seem like a lot of days, but it's 1 year.
Right.
So, well, no, blessings are different. All right. So how do we find ourselves in this text? I think on some levels we have to try and relate to what's going on. What can we construct from our own experience that helps us understand the power of a eulogy to somehow expand our years, and the power of a eulogy not given to contract our years? I
Well,
don't know if it's a punishment or not, Jay, but there seems to be a limitation placed on our lives if we don't give proper eulogy, right?
I think this is all about respect among colleagues as elders, cooperators, beneficiaries. If we say and do good things, that will be returned to us. If we don't, we may lose some days.
Okay, so so basically the benefit of doing a eulogy is simply the benefit that comes from doing the right thing. Joshua deserved a proper eulogy. Joshua was the key figure in taking us from our slave reality and our desert mentality into the promised land.
and he was Moses's,
Successor.
but Moses picked him.
Yes.
So
he is the real deal. And so when he dies, it's really important that everybody pay proper homage and to remember him for a blessing and to capture his legacy.
So all I can think of is that people I've known that weren't the nicest people who get the most gorgeous eulogies, and you go, really?
Yeah, well, there are definitely complexities in life, and sometimes we have a strange way of letting people off the hook when they die. Maybe it's just
Yeah.
maybe it's just the way we are, you know, we're trying to be decent people ultimately. And is there a bigger price to pay sometimes than death?
What is that song?
I don't know. So,
That's the echoing of bells and stuff. I don't
welcome,
know.
Devorah. Nice to see you. I am going to put the text in the chat box for you. Oh, I can't do that yet. I don't think. Hang on. Where's my chat box? Bear with me a second. All right, almost there. You probably see all of this happening now.
We don't see the chat box.
Okay. All right. So, in this language, we have some confusion. Yochanan says, be precise. Many days doesn't necessarily mean many years. All right. So even if you live many days after Joshua, despite the fact you haven't given a eulogy, don't count on a long life. Then we get a text that sort of contradicts the power of days, right? The power of days comes in their multiplication over time because we have, because we enjoy the blessing of our forefathers, the zechut that they have brought us, right? So if we honor them, then our days will multiply. Not our years, but our days. So what's the difference?
Time.
Blessing is different than the outcome of a eulogy. Should be interpreted in its most expansive sense. Feels slightly arbitrary here to me, but practically speaking, I'm kind of stuck on this. Effectively speaking, what might increase our lives besides the eulogy being a good deed, even a mitzvah? What about remembering someone will add years to our lives?
I'm tempted to say that it adds years in therapy, but the days but each day has a really discrete end when you go to sleep. And it's easier to see one's in some sense, it's easier in retrospect when you're doing a eulogy to see accomplishments over the course of years and years and years. My mother used to have something on her refrigerator that said, life is made of moments, not days.
Yes.
And if you think of your own memories, you know, you don't necessarily remember every day, like with a timestamp, but something that happened that day. And maybe the force of doing the eulogy is that you are trying to learn from that person's total experience.
Yes.
I also have the same, just to back to Devorah's point about if you die at 10, does that mean you're better? And this whole issue of only the good die young. And if one of your brothers dies, then everybody's going to die. That's essentially, you know, what happens in a gang war, or, you know, the Hatfields and McCoys. But I'm also thinking in terms of, you know, things I saw professionally, that there are people who have unfortunately very short lives, but they did everything that you could have done during those lives. Even if it was a 5-day life, you accomplished what people accomplish in 5 days, which is that they made an indelible mark on their parents, on their families, on the people who cared for them, even if they didn't accomplish something, you know, that left a scar on the earth or money in the bank.
Right.
And people can have full short lives. And a lot of people, it seems to me, who are very old, no longer have such full days, even though they are still adding to the number of days. And that's when people begin to get sad about being old.
Yeah. Very beautiful, Miriam. I'm so inspired. I think that as somebody who writes eulogies often, too often, I wouldn't go into writing the hesped, as we call it in Hebrew. I wouldn't go into it focused on a particular day in the life of a person. I could, there may be a particular day in a person's life that is truly worth remembering, but most hespedim are painted with a broader brush that enables a picture to be painted of a person's entire life and the legacy they built over a period of time. Whether it's a short life or a long life, it's a life that we look at overall, right? So what legacy does this person leave behind? Well, it's a function of a lot of things done over time. As a person who worked, as a person who learned, as a person who taught, as a person who lived as a force for good.
There's a rather coarse proverb that says, it's not the days you put in, but what you put in the days.
Yes. Over time, right? Consistently over time. But the question is, and I liked your quip, Miriam, about, a full impression of a person's life may add to our life if we go to a therapist, right? And get healthy. Might add to our life. Okay, so be it. It's also true that a person may have life habits or quirks or whatever that we wouldn't champion, right? We would understand them as a cautionary tale. And if we take time to eulogize them, we might be able to capture those cautionary tales and change our lives or refrain from doing certain things. That is something that comes out in eulogies quite often. But if we don't do that eulogy, then we may not learn any of that, or we may not remember any of that. Right? A eulogy stokes memory and captures that memory, often in writing, so that there's a record of a person's life, not just the days that they lived, but their lives in general. And that picture can become instructive for us. It could definitely lend to a better and longer life. Now, are we going to be punished? Literally? I doubt it. I don't believe life really works that way. Will we be at a deficit in some way? That's a possibility, and probably a probability.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't really believe much that, we're going to have an Adav and Avihu experience, where we bring the Avodah Zarah, the strange fire, and God's going to zap us. If we don't do a hesped, we don't do a hesped. It's a simple outcome, and, we are probably not going to die over it, but we may not benefit from the respect that it shows to the deceased.
I think there are two things that are at play here. One is that a eulogy gives closure. As you mentioned, it brings up all the facets of the person's life, maybe not only the good ones, but some that he omitted. And so that helps the family. The funerals are for the living, not the dead. The second thing is that there's an old proverb in Latin, de mortui nihil nisi bonum, of the dead, do not say anything but good, because his or her colleagues are still on hand, and proverbially they can still stab you in the back if you say or do or somehow act out the wrong thing.
Right. Jay, I'm reminded about rules regarding Lashon Hara, some of which are so strict that we're not even permitted to praise somebody in public. because of somebody who may hear it and misappropriate it, or proverbially or really stab someone in the back. So I'm not advocating that you never praise somebody that deserves it in public. I think you should. And I think it's fair to trust others, not to stab them in the back because you said something nice. But you could imagine it happening, right? Jealous souls might take what you have to say about somebody positively or negatively and use it against that person. So you need to be careful. So what do we take away from this ultimately? That if someone in a group dies, the entire group should be concerned enough to talk about that person's life. Now it says here, if he, despite his virtues, could not avoid punishment, others will certainly not be saved. And some say the concern is greatest if the youngest dies, because the least significant people are punished first. And perhaps this is the start of a punishment for the entire group.
This whole idea of a group punishment, by whom, I'm assuming God, is the reason why people go off the rails, like with COVID-19. People are saying that, oh, the Messiah is coming because all the bad people are being punished. Come on, really? I
Right.
have a problem with that attitude.
I understand. I think that people get COVID because they're exposed to it,
Correct.
whether they're a good person or not.
Excuse me.
So here there's it kind of parse it out. Well, what if it's the youngest person in the group? What if it's the oldest person in the group? I guess if somebody is older, they've lived a longer life, created potentially a broader legacy. I don't think that's always true. Depends on the person, right? Somebody can die young and have a most amazing impact on the world. When you think of Matty Stepanek, who I don't think, he didn't live very long, but his poetry was very beautiful and enduring, well beyond his young years. Jimi Hendrix, one of my favorite examples, he died at 27, was preeminent for but a few years, really, and arguably is the best guitar player, rock guitar player ever to play. Certainly the most innovative and groundbreaking. 3 years, died at 27.
And justification for only the good die young.
Well, it's sort of interesting to me that that somebody could live relatively short few years, accumulating many days. 27 years is many days, but the impact is powerful. So
For you, not so much on me.
I understand. These things are very subjective, just as art is in general. But I'm just kind of interested in this notion of group punishment.
Yeah.
And how it is either mitigated or enhanced depending on the quality of our remembrance, right? And the basic fact as to whether we eulogize or not. By the way, I wonder if it's as simple as just doing a eulogy. Like, oh, here's a eulogy. It's one sentence. Is there a minimum amount of words that one needs to give proper due to somebody whose life deserves to be remembered? And I think, like anything, I think a eulogy should be complete, whether it's 100 words or 1,000 words or 10,000 words.
Sometimes you can't think of the words to say.
Or you can't think of the words to say. So, are you going to be punished if you can't come up with the words at all or enough of the words? The text doesn't deal with that per se, but it does indicate that if we don't do it properly, there will be some level of punishment. So I'm not prepared to tell you sort of the deep, the deep nuances of what types of punishments may occur to somebody. But what would the punishment be, really, practically speaking?
For what?
For
I don't think punishment has to come from without. Many punishments are self-inflicted, and the eulogy could be a warning to those who hear it.
okay, so punishment may be just like we were getting at before. Let's just say a person, drank himself basically to death. All right. If we were not to eulogize that, either not at all, or we were to ignore it altogether and just pretend it wasn't there, well, where's the cautionary tale? Rabbi, I already know. Okay. Well, what about subsequent generations?
Rabbi?
What if alcoholism, for example, is something that can be passed on in a way genetically?
Well,
It's the propensity for it.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I've known people who committed suicide and whose funerals and everything were very circumspect because nobody wants to talk about the fact that it was a suicide. Because, for instance, in the Catholic Church, you can't be buried in hallowed ground. I think some people feel that way about Jews as well. And I think that's very sad because there are reasons for that, and they're not all that always that person, usually not that person's fault.
Right. So I think that when we're talking about suicide, overdose, the death of a small child,
Yes, my sister.
it can be hard sometimes to really face the painful realities.
Yep.
And words have a way of bringing those realities to bear.
Rabbi,
Yes, Deborah.
you go back to alcoholism. I would say in the rooms that if someone dies, we would, if not at the grave, we would eulogize that person in the rooms and talk about them and, for their lives, the lives they lived. And if he had come to the rooms at all, but at least look for the good. So many people die, but they tried to recover. And if they came to the rooms at all, we would utilize it, them there,
Yes.
if not at the actual grave.
So most certainly, a eulogy is most effective, in my rabbinic opinion, when it reflects the breadth of a person's life. So let's say in one way a person is a tzaddik, in another the person isn't. Important for us to reflect on the fullness of a person's life. My sense of not eulogizing properly has to do with not being fully aware or honest about a person. So you don't take enough time to champion that person's life. You don't take enough time to reflect the cautionary tales about that person's life. By the way, I don't want to be simplistic and say everybody has this sort of clear dichotomy. You have some things to champion, things not to champion. I think that's true often, maybe even mostly. But, there are people who definitely weigh more towards the virtue side and those who weigh more towards the non-virtue side. I believe everybody deserves a eulogy. some are harder to write than others, trust me. And always easy for me to say, if I'm not the direct recipient of somebody's non-virtue, right?
Yeah.
We talk about that, right? Do you eulogize somebody who's a mass murderer?
Yeah.
Or a domestic abuser?
John Wayne Gacy.
Right? You may desist from that task. You wonder what happens when somebody is charged with that task. What do they do to be credible witness? So look, I know what I would do if I were called to eulogize a hardened criminal or somebody who's unrepentant or somebody who's a domestic abuser. I would be direct about the cautionary tales their lives indicate. And I might say just how difficult it might be to summon forgiveness. And I might place a certain responsibility in God's hands to sort out the complexities that I just can't in my own life. To me, this would be a proper eulogy.
Leave it. I'll take care of it.
So,
The shirts.
questions, comments?
Rabbi,
Yes, Ben.
upon first reading the sugya, I thought it might have been a broader commentary on the benefits or importance or necessity of mitzvot. But eulogizing somebody, if it is not an official mitzvot, could somehow be correlated into a broader one.
Yeah,
Does anyone-
I think Zachor is a memory.
Right.
Memory. It is definitely a memory. It is a mitzvah. It is a mitzvah.
But I think the end, a blessing is different and should be interpreted in its most expansive sense. I think that's something that's very interesting and worth thinking about.
So
Let's
tell
see.
me. So why is it okay to do blessing and there our days will multiply, and we're not worried about our years?
It's more so really about the quality than the quantity.
Okay.
What we do while we are alive is viewed as more significant than the length of our lives.
Okay. From my perspective, I would add to your point, Ben, that we're called to do a lot of blessings every day. How many?
Well, the total number of mitzvot is 636.
Right. Well, we're not commanded to do every mitzvah every day.
No, but like you're supposed to recite the Shema and other prayers 3 times.
Right. We're supposed to say 100 blessings every day. Have you ever heard this?
No, but it would be interesting to see a breakdown on that. But I could imagine.
Well, so I mean,
See the math.
you could get to 100 with somewhat relative ease, particularly in this pandemic age. I mean, how many times are you washing your hands every day? That alone, I think, could get you to the promised land.
Yeah, if you said Natilat Yadayim every time.
How many times, if you're praying 3 times a day? I don't know the answer. I really should, but it's a homework assignment. It's like count how many blessings are there. Baruch atah Adonai. Anything that's Baruch atah Adonai is a blessing.
Well, everything from when you say the Moda Ani, from when you wake up to when you finish saying the Shema Chamafil at night, I mean, there's a lot of room there for a lot of blessings.
Yeah. There could be a lot there. Eating, right? There's blessings within blessings, like in the Birkat Hamazon.
Yeah.
Right. So I think you could get
Rabbi?
to 100. Yes.
I just noticed in teaching blessings to my 4th graders one-on-one, Natilat Lulav is one blessing. Natilat Yadayim. What do you do to the lulav? You shake it. What do you do to your hands? You're supposed to be washing them, but I think it's more like shaking them off of the water. Just an observation from teaching over Zoom for 3 months. Think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things about days and lives and years now, I was looking at my last year's calendar and looking at this year's calendar, and there's obviously a difference. And the challenge, of course, is how do you make a day count now when you used to think in terms of what am I going to do this week, next week, travel plans, that kind of stuff. It's also, despite all the hand washing blessings, a lot of your 100 blessings can be when you see someone, when you do something, when you have an experience. And if you're spending your day seeing the same person roughly 24 hours a day, it gets a little harder to, Baruch haba, right?
Right.
So it's a tough issue for this particular time, I think.
Point taken. But I think, look, theoretically, at least in the abstract, if we do the math here, 100 blessings a day, right, over a year is a lot more blessings each day than there is a year, right? There's 1 year and, 36,500 blessings. Is my math correct?
Who knows? It's a lot.
How many are you supposed to do?
100.
365 with 2 zeros. So,
Maybe 6,500.
yeah, that's a lot.
Well,
Right?
but
So here, expanding our definition of blessing and understanding that, hey, you got to do a lot of blessings. Got to do one eulogy to cover the full gamut of a person's life. But you need to do 100 blessings per day.
Hmm.
And if you do either many blessings per day or one eulogy for someone's whole life, will engender more life for ourselves. And the importance is to care about it. The bottom line is if somebody dies, care about it enough to write a eulogy. Whether or not that person lived a long time, whether that person lived a little bit of time, and understand that the more blessings that we do, the more blessings that we count day in and day out, the more we will accumulate over the days, even if the years don't totally add up. That seems to be the difference. Ben, thank you for bringing up the concern about blessings. Do you like directly studying Talmud? It's not like the first time we've ever done this, but
no, but we didn't get very far.
no, but that's the way it goes. So
And that's actually not even the beginning of the daf. The daf is right below. That's the end of 105B.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I kind of just kind of locked in on the part that was highlighted.
Yeah.
We got to this first part. Oh, well. So listen, feel free to look at this more fully. We're going to do 106.
B.
What are you going to be sent?
Here's B, right there.
Yeah. So do me a favor. Read through the rest of 106A,
Uh-huh.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And 106B. And that way we'll all be fully prepared to discuss it next time. And then I'll give you the next daf. And this will be our participation in the daf yomi process.
Was 106A in the packet you sent?
It's right here.
It's all here.
Beginning.
So everybody should have access to this now. Just click on it,
When this
click
comes
on the
up,
icon and save the document. This whole document is what's relevant for next week as well.
That's what I did, and that's what I emailed people.
Oh, good. Fine. So you sent it out. That's great. I do appreciate that. So we're going to pause for now. Thank you for your understanding. I want our conversation to be just like this, crisp, focused, And we'll have a little more time next time. Let's come in at 9 as close as possible at least, and we'll
The same link?
dive in. Yeah, this is our link. What I've done here is I've created a link for every class that I do.
Okay.
So this link is the same every time. Okay?
Rabbi, it's too bad you can't do like when you sign up for a class, they send you an email an hour before.
We could probably set up for that
That would be great.
because everything else is set up like that. I don't know why this isn't, but.
Because we didn't have to sign up for it.
Oh, I see. That's why. Okay,
Yeah,
so we might have you sign up for this officially.
I think that's a good idea because I like the reminder because sometimes I can't find the email.
Yeah, I understand.
I agree. I like that idea too.
I like to have
I do
my
too.
information right at my fingertips, so I don't have to look a million different places.
Correct.
I would like that too. That would
All right.
be
Well,
easy to find.
for sure, just as a backup, keep whatever email that has this
I
link in,
will.
and it'll get you into the system. No problem. All right.
I didn't.
Official
And
sign
I
up.
got-
Everybody look for a link either in the Shabbat note, or the weekly bulletin. If they could get that in for Monday, Rabbi, that would be a good
Okay.
idea.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Thank you.
So listen, you're quite welcome. If you're not intending to go to services, I would urge you to check in with the Poor People's Campaign. Just look up Poor People's Campaign
Yeah.
online, and you can sign up for their online march. And if you do, I hope you'll tell me about it.
I sent a link to Juneteenth Havdalah that's happening tonight.
Oh, through JCOA. That's also, yes. Depending on family obligations, I may or may not drop in on that.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll all do it.
By the way, happy Father's Day to all the fathers in our midst.
Yes. Happy Father's Day to those celebrating Father's Day in whatever way you celebrate it. And that includes those who are remembering.
And those who are about to
Fathers
become
of
fathers.
blessed memory.
And those who are about to become fathers.
That's right.
We say Bahatzlacha.
Tov Mod.
That's what you say, Bahatzlacha.
Hatzlacha. Lehitraot.
Or actually, even you say B'sha'at tova to an expecting father. B'sha'at tova, in a good hour.
What do you say to a mom?
B'sha'at tova.
Same thing? Huh.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah,
You don't say Mazel Tov because you don't want to. It's not a congratulations, really.
because
And
it
you don't
hasn't.
want it to be a function of luck, right?
And you don't want to put the evil eye on it either.
Exactly. So so we say B'sha'at tova. It's a nice, neutral, and optimistic comment.
Okay.
So
Lehitraot.
you can share that with your friends at your next dinner party.
Okay. Lehitraot.
Or
Yeah.
when you see somebody who is pregnant, you can say B'sha'at tova.
Sha'at tova. Nice to know.
All right.
Toda, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you all.
Bye.
Be well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.